There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of Mediation, the court of human relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation, helped to make it a creative force in American life, A.L. Alexander.
So typical of the cynicism that abounds these days. Somebody said there are three stages of modern married life: matrimony, acrimony, and alimony. Now, whether that's meant to be contemptuous of a basic but unhappily fallible institution or just a joke, the fact remains that there are so many relationships that begin so hopefully but seem to lose their way, and yet can be salvaged long before the second or third stages, through the friendly intervention of impartial persons. Now, as we turn to this case, number 4802, I know that both sides do have faith in the judgment of this board, the members of which are without prejudice of any kind. May some doubtful things be better understood in a situation having an impending note of tragedy. Our board comprises New York's Commissioner of Correction, Honorable Anna M. Cross, President of Adelphi College at Garden City, New York, Dr. Paul Dawson Eddy, and New York State's Appeals Commissioner in the Federal Unemployment Insurance Administration in so many areas dedicated to the public interest, Honorable Edward Corsi. We have often had occasion to say that there is no intention in these proceedings to disentangle in a few moments the accumulated complications of a lifetime. But we do feel that on this occasion we can lay stress on certain aspects of this situation which will resolve it and which will be helpful. Now, here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, what do you think of my husband? Any little thing that I don't agree to, he picks up his valise, packs his bag, and out he goes.
Now, are there certain things about your husband that form a kind of mystery?
Yes. I want to know what is the mystery with his money? He gets paid every week, and a certain portion of his salary I don't see. I don't know what he does with it or who he gives it to.
And what else do you want to know?
I think I have the right to know.
Yes. Now, what else do you want to know?
I want to know about the Florida deal. He tells me that if I don't sell the house and sign the papers, he forces me to sign the papers to sell the house, he will sell and go by himself. Again, he's leaving.
Yes. Now, you were born and raised in these parts, is that right?
Yes.
So that you want to...
Yeah, my roots are here, and the few people I know are here. So I don't want to go to Florida. I don't want to sell the house, but I'm forced to.
Yes. Well, now, Judge Cross and gentlemen, I think for the moment that establishes the issue. This wife is disturbed and very seriously about Florida and about being forced to sign papers when she doesn't want to leave, and about a man spending money that she knows nothing about, and about his picking up a valise and walking off if something that he wants doesn't satisfy it. No, I think that you've had enough to say at the moment, and we'll hear from you a little later. Now, suppose we hear from the respondent husband.
Mr. Alexander, I am very glad that my wife has selected this means of settling a dispute.
Why?
Because the last time we had any discussion, she told me that during my sleep she would stick a knife in me and kill me.
Oh, my goodness, I wouldn't kill a fly. Right now
That's
I'm
what
sitting
she
here
said,
and I'm
yes.
so nervous.
That's what she
Yes.
said.
Well, now, do you really believe that she would do that?
I do.
I
She
said that
is
to you.
capable of
Yes.
doing that.
Now, I'm going to ask your husband to tell his side of the story, and I think it would be a very courteous and ladylike thing, in deference to this board, if we could hear his side. Now, you've asked some very specific questions. You want to know about Florida, and you want to know about his packing up and leaving, and you want to know about forcing you to sign, as you put it, and the mystery about the money. Now, if you're sincere, we're going to try to find that out. Now, you say that you feel she's capable of that?
She's capable of doing that.
Why do you say that?
Oh, my goodness.
No, now you're going to have to
please.
let your husband speak, and the board will make up its mind. Oh, nobody's on trial
Could
here.
I
We're just
talk
trying to
further?
find. No, not at this time. Now, suppose we find out from the husband why you think she's capable of that.
Well, my wife is full of bitterness and hate, and I don't know why, but she hates the whole world and everybody in it, including me.
You think that she's unpredictable sometimes?
That's right. I don't remember the time that she said a kind and loving word to me.
Did you ever say it to me?
I don't know what to do with her. I mean, I just don't know. I give up. It's impossible.
Yes. Well, give us an example now about her changeableness.
Well, in some time when it's raining, she complains that the weather is terrible, it's raining, why doesn't the sun come out? Well, the next day when the sun comes out, she complains that it should rain. She's sick and tired of the sun. Many a time I come home from work. I come home 8, 9 o'clock. I've been working overtime. So she complains that I come home too late.
Yes.
But
there
the following
are times
week...
that you
Yes.
don't work
Now,
overtime.
now,
many,
just a minute.
many times.
It so happens that I am conducting this, and we're going to conclude it in just one moment. You came to me with a complaint, and we arranged this proceeding for your benefit and for the benefit of your marriage. But we can't come to any conclusion unless you're sportsmanlike enough to hear your husband's side, and you'll have a chance to answer it. But if you're going to constantly interrupt, that's contrary to the rules of this procedure,
Yes,
and
but
we'll just
I
have to
didn't say
conclude
everything
it.
I want to say, Mr. Alexander.
Didn't I tell you that when your husband concludes, you'll have a further chance to speak?
Well, I have more to say.
I'll ask you that again. Did I tell you that when your husband concludes, you will have a further chance to speak? Is that clear, members of the board? Yes. Well, now we'll proceed. Now, were you going to give us an example about, what about the car?
Well, I first want to explain that I come home 8 or 9 o'clock working overtime, and she complains that I come home too late. Why don't I come home earlier? Well, the next week it's slow. There is no overtime. I come home at 6 or 7 o'clock. She says I come home too early. Why don't I get a part-time job?
Yes.
Now, we have a car, but we have 2 cars, but I don't use them. My boy has one, and I leave one for her.
Yes, I'm going to ask you to get to the point because...
I never use the car, and if I do use it, it's an hour or 2 on Sunday. So I fill the car up with gas, and she complains, why did I put gas in the car? Now, if I put the car away without filling it up with gas, she complains because she curses me because she ran out of gas on the road.
Well, now, what about the story of money? Your wife says that she doesn't know anything about the money.
Well, the story about money is that I pay all the bills. I'm responsible for 2 cars, the rent, electric and gas, water, all my expenses, and any expenses that there are, I'm responsible for. And I give her a certain amount of money weekly for the table.
Well, let's understand. What is your salary that you take home in the course of a week,
You mean the exact salary? Say $115?
$115. And how much do you give your wife in cash each week?
I give her 40 for the table.
40 for the table.
Right.
Now, out of the rest, you have to pay rent,
Gas, electric.
taxes. Do you have taxes?
House heating, yes.
Yes. Your own personal expenses?
That's right.
What about the children? What about your boy?
Well, my boy, I just put him through college. In June, he graduated.
So that you feel that, well, do you have a bank account?
No, sir, I don't have a bank account.
Well, tell us about that. Do you feel that with all the expenses that you have?
With all the expenses I have and the taxes, I'm just able to make ends meet. And I don't have any money in the bank. And she's got a bank account.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, I suppose that she wants to have a little nest egg for herself, and she banks out of the table money, possibly half of it every week. And when it comes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I have to lay out my own money for food for my daughter and myself.
Well, what about Florida?
Well, Florida, I have 2 problems there. One is my wife that you know about, and the other one is the high cost of living. And I feel that up north where I am now, there's the problem of traffic and bridge tolls and parking problems and New York state tax, and I just can't make a go of it. Everything is too high, and in Florida it's easier living. You can buy a house down there for $10,000 and you get squatters' rights, you don't pay any taxes, and you don't pay any heat bills, and you don't pay any clothing bills. And I think that if we went down there, we could start all over again and possibly be happy.
Well, your wife says that you want to pack up and leave.
No, that's not so. I want her to come with me.
And what did she say when you asked her to go with you?
Well, she doesn't want to come. I told her that I want to go down there now while I'm able to work, and I don't want to go to Florida when I'm dead or when I'm ready to die.
Could I say something?
In just a moment. Well, now, do you feel there's any chance of your being happy here?
Well, after 23 years, I don't think so.
And do you feel that there's a possible chance of your being happy in Florida?
I think there is, and I'm asking her to come with me, and with a different environment and climate and so forth, I think we can make a go of it.
Do you feel that you can get a job there?
Yes, sir, I think I can get a good job there.
And you're willing...
He got one job waiting there now.
And you're willing to pay... have you made inquiries about jobs there?
Well, I have. I was down there in March. I was there for 3 weeks, and I know what the score is.
Yes. And do you want to take your wife with you and your child with you?
That's right.
And you've suggested that, and she refuses. Now, what about the house? When is the closing of the house?
Well, we just sold the house. The closing won't take place for about another month.
And
now,
what is the situation as to the money in the house?
She wants half the money, and she doesn't want to go to Florida, and she doesn't want me to go either.
And are you willing to let her have half the money, the proceeds of the house, if she doesn't want to go?
I'm willing to let her have half the money, and if we go to Florida, I'll pay all the expenses.
So that if she wants to go to Florida, she can, and if she doesn't want to go to Florida, she can have half the money of the house.
She can have half the money regardless if she wants to go or not, but I want to go and my daughter wants to go.
Well, what's the good of me staying here without him? He's my whole life.
Well, will you repeat that?
I say, what's the sense of me staying here without him? He's my whole life. I want to be with him, and I guess he wants to be with me.
Well, I
so
understood that you didn't want to go to Florida.
But you don't understand. I don't want him to sell the house and force me to sign papers to agree to sell the house when I don't want to sell the house. I want things the way they are. He pays $115 rent where we're at, and it's cute. I'm happy there. I have a nice split level, a nice backyard. I'm happy there. I don't want to go to Florida. And another thing, ever since I know him, he never tells me something. Asks me something, he tells me. And gee, I'm a human being. I got a mind, I got sense. Please don't make me bring up.
Yes, well, we can understand.
And then any little thing I say no to, he packs up his valise and he goes away for a month or two. I mean, I'm not a dog, I'm a person. And he thinks that I put on, I'm fake. I'm pretending. I don't pretend. I'm sincere. Now I have this full house, it's split level. He only pays $115 a month rent. I don't take no extra money for clothing. And he says I have a bank account. Why, since I know him, I never had 5 cents towards my name. So I've saved a few dollars here, a few dollars there from the money he gives me. And mind you, may I never get off this chair, he never pays for clothing. Not enough, anyway. Just minor things he gets me. Is that asking too much?
Yes. Well, I think that the board understands the background of this situation. Yes. Well, I'm sure they're going to try to understand.
I'm very sensitive, and he isn't. So it makes a big difference. And I don't want to stay here with half of the money that we get on the house, and that's all.
Yes.
I want him. I want my child. I have a 22-year-old boy that just graduated college.
Yes.
I mean...
Well, now, I'm going to do this.
I didn't want to come...
I'm going to ask you...
I'm too upset.
Yes, I'm going to ask you to retire a moment because I want to present something to the board. Will you just retire?
I have more to say.
Yes, well, we'll hear that later. We'll hear that later. Thank you very much. Now, I think, Judge Cross and gentlemen, it would be a good idea if we heard for just a moment from the child who is at home. I think that this will be very illuminating, and I'm going to ask that the little girl be brought in so that we can hear from her. That's just for a moment. Well, now, I think perhaps that you can sit down right here. That's right. Now, will you look at these people? They're very friendly. This is Judge Cross. Even though she's been a judge for many years and a commissioner, she's a very kindly person, very understanding, and she's been through this sort of thing many times, and she knows all about children, all about families. Then there's Dr. Eddy, who is the president of a college and who has lovely children, and Commissioner Corsi, who's one of the grandest people you could possibly know. Now, we're just going to ask you one or two questions. How old are you?
13.
And a very attractive girl, isn't she? We want to ask you this. Would you like to go to Florida?
Yes.
Why would you like to go there?
I think maybe there we could start a new life there. I hope be happy there, much happier than we are here now.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I think the board was glad to meet you, and I'm sure that they're going to make a serious attempt to bring happiness to your father and mother and to your family. I think it should be explained to the board that under ordinary circumstances we wouldn't go to this extreme, but it must be clear to all concerned that this child is exposed to all the conflict in the home. She knows every aspect of it. There's no aspect that's a secret to her. So consistent with our desire to find truth, I see nothing inconsistent with good policy in having her give her opinion. Well, thank you very much. Well, now, members of the board, if the complainant wife were able to control herself, I would ask for her return, because I think that she should hear what you have to say. And I'm going to ask her to come in, making the promise that she will forbear long enough to hear what the board has to say. I think I should tell you that when these proceedings are over, you will have a chance to speak to the members of the board. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you, as a matter of courtesy to them, and as a matter of justice to yourself, because doesn't it occur to you that if you insist on taking matters in your own hand and complain and protest, that tends to influence their judgment? Now, there's a time to speak and a time to be silent, and we're going to ask you not to say anything more, otherwise we'll have to adjourn these proceedings, and that won't be good for you. Now, you just listen to what this board has to say. Judge Cross?
Well, I realize the woman is emotionally disturbed, and I think it's one of the things she feels herself. She's lived under tension, and it would seem to me that as far as anything that one could say, having listened to the husband and to the child, there's a situation here that isn't good for the family. And I'd like to say, as one woman to another, that there's very little that a woman in that situation would lose by complying with a husband's request and going down with her child and her husband and trying to see if they can't overcome the tensions that existed. Florida isn't today a foreign country. It's accessible. If one finds one can't get along, one can come back, and life is easier in a smaller place. And my recommendation to her would be, one, to go with her husband and her child. But above all, I would also say when she went down there that she ought to go and try to find out what is really troubling her. It may be certain things at her stage in life that makes her so nervous, that makes her husband react the way he does, and that might help her in a great measure. But I certainly feel that continuing this way would be of very little use to her husband, or her child.
Commissioner Corsi?
Well, I agree with that. I think these two people are well-meaning, and the fact that they're willing to put their troubles on the table and have others advise them is an encouraging sign. And I think they ought to talk things out more and come to a better understanding.
Well, Commissioner Corsi, if I may interrupt at this point, I think it must be apparent to you that these people are not so equipped that they can talk things out in a rational way. They allow
No,
their
I
emotions
think-
to get in the way of their logic and judgment.
I agree with that, but they've been willing to come before this board and to discuss their problem jointly with this board, which is a sign, an indication that they have not given up hope of reaching some kind of an understanding or some means of communicating with each other. I agree with Judge Cross that perhaps it might be a good thing to try this Florida adventure. If not jointly, let him go down and see if he can get a job. If not, come back. And that may be the beginning of a new relationship here. I think you ought to keep your mind open on that. I want to point out here, Mr. Alexander, a very basic principle is involved in all this. He has the responsibility of supporting this family, and I think he's done an admirable job. I think he sent his son or one of his children through college. He has supported this family, has worked hard. And I think that he must be given a certain independence of judgment as to how best he may improve the economic situation.
You feel that morally and every other...
And morally, I think she ought to cooperate with him.
Dr. Eddy?
Well, I agree with my colleagues as far as the experiment of going to Florida. I would like to suggest that it will be the same people who get off the train at the other end as leave New York City, and that it isn't where you are that makes the difference, it's what you are and your feelings about the other person. Just traveling 1,800 miles is not going to solve the problem. I think the man has to go. I think that the weight of evidence is in favor of the move. But my real concern is this very attractive young child, and I'm sure the boy is equally fine. Now, how two fine people could have such offspring of such promise and intelligence and not be able to even to talk to each other, even about their children and the welfare of the children, is very difficult. I would hope that they both could have some kind of professional, friendly counseling, family counseling, because the wife says, he's my life. The husband, who's apparently running away, says, I want her to go with me. Well, if there's that much to go on, there's certainly a basis for resolving the conflict with a little patient counseling and an effort on both sides to mutual understanding for the sake of this very attractive young child.
Well, Dr. Eddy, I had occasion to say at the outset of these proceedings that there is no intention here to disentangle in a few moments the accumulated complications of a lifetime. And we say that again. And I think if any case called for counseling, this does. And I think that this is a perfect example of a case that should be given into the hands of a counselor in order that we may help these people. But it's obvious, in the interest of sound public policy, that we establish certain principles and certain conclusions. Namely, that if the husband wants to go to Florida and he feels somehow that it will relieve the economic situation, and if he feels that he can get a job there, and he wants to establish a home in Florida and is able to assume responsibility, that, according to this board, is the thing to do. It is reasonable that the wife, if she wants to preserve her marriage, that the wife understand that and cooperate with him in every way that she can. That is the unanimous opinion of this board. We come to the close of another session of the Court of Human Relations and extend our thanks to our distinguished mediators. Honorable Anna M. Cross, New York's Commissioner of Correction. Dr. Paul Dawson Eddy of Adelphi College at Garden City, New York, and New York State's Appeals Commissioner in the Federal Unemployment Insurance Administration, Honorable Edward Corsi. You know, money has feet and walks away, but good thoughts go on forever. Now, one good thought is this: life affords no greater pleasure than the pleasure of giving pleasure. The poet puts it this way: it is in loving, not in being loved, the heart finds its quest. It is in giving, not in getting, our lives are blessed.